Nelson has a beautiful setting, protected from wind and rain on three sides by mountains and facing the sea. But this means there is little flat land. The first settlers to Nelson hoped to become farmers, but there simply was not the space. So instead they specialised in horticulture, growing vegetables and fruit. Tobacco, grapes and hops were also planted. Early efforts at making beer in Nelson were unsuccessful, the beer being described as resembling at best sour swede juice. But a boutique brewery revolution kicked off in 1981, when McCashin's brewery produced beer using local hops, and many other successful microbreweries followed, including Founders. Tobacco was grown as a cash crop in the Nelson area from the 1880s. By 1933, around 90% of the country's tobacco came from the Nelson region. A grower's typical greeting was, "G'day, how's your bacca?" But grower numbers gradually declined, and in the 1980s, the lifting of government protection saw tobacco growing cease altogether. In developing horticulture, immigrant groups have made important contributions. The first group of Germans arrived in 1843 and founded a village in the Moteri Valley, which flooded and survived only a year. A second group arrived a year later and settled in a village which they named Rantzau. It was renamed Hope in 1914 after war with Germany broke out, but Rantzau Road, Rantzau School and the Rantzau Lutheran Church still exist. Around 1850, some Germans returned to Moteri, establishing settlements at Upper Moteri, Rosedale and Neudorf. Germans were among the first to introduce commercial winemaking into New Zealand. In the 1900s, Italians from the area south of Naples arrived in Nelson. In a pattern known as chain migration, a few immigrants from one Italian village would travel out to New Zealand. They would encourage family members to join them, offering work and accommodation. Over time, close-knit communities developed, sharing family bonds and a common region back in Italy. The Nelson Italians settled close to the city below the hill in an area known as the Wood, which became a major tomato-growing community. Today, the tomato plants have been replaced by housing, but streets with names such as San Lorenzo Way, Cambria Gardens and Di Pieri Way remind us of the area's early Italian inhabitants. Nelson's Italians also contributed to the city's cultural life. For 40 years, the Vitetta brothers entertained Nelsonians with their music, forming a string band and playing for silent movies. Others have contributed to Nelson now being a centre for arts and craft. Famous New Zealand artists Colin McCann, Tos Wollaston, Rita Angus, Doris Lusk and Leo Benseman, a descendant of local German immigrants, all spent time painting in the Nelson area. Immigrant potters came to Nelson in the 1960s and established the city's reputation as a pottery centre. Silversmiths and glass workers followed. By 1985, around 400 people were working as artisans. In 1987, the first World of WearableArt show, the vision of sculptor Susie Moncrief, was held in a tent in the Nelson countryside using a borrowed stereo. The concept of wearable art is to take art off the walls to adorn the moving body. The event soon attracted entrants and audiences from around the world, but in 2005, the show moved to Wellington. However, a WOW museum 7 kilometres from the city centre houses a collection of creative clothing made for the annual Wearable Art Show. It also houses an extensive collection of classic cars.